I think you and I would agree that sound economic management is actually about good outcomes for people. And people rarely recognise that. It's arcane, it's difficult, it's always stacked against us because politicians talk about the need to be economically responsible, not to spend too much money and so forth. I think you've written about the economy and the family. You've stated that a lot of public debt, a lot of expenditure by the public sector and so forth is because of societal breakdown. In other words, a strong economy really depends upon a coherent and functioning society.
So this is the paper that I've done for ARC this year. We did previous papers in the past that were similar, and basically this actually ties very much so into the book as well, although it's a more pragmatic version of it for policymakers and so on. Is that basically you can't really have an economy without an underlying stable system of, for want of a better term, human reproduction and orderly human reproduction, in the sense that you have relatively functional people to be able to work and so on. And what's happened is really, really fascinating in the West, especially, but it's happening in other places too. And you see two trends. Two trends seem to undermine this. First of all, liberalism itself, in its very late stage of ultra individualistic hyper-consumption. You don't need to concern yourself with your society, just work, consume, et cetera, et cetera. And tied to that, actually, and I'm not anti-capitalist in any way, I used to work in financial markets, but tied to that is, in a sense, capitalism without any constraints on it. And by that, I don't mean state constraints on markets, just social constraints on capitalism. So if we, for example, talk about GDP, we all want to maximize GDP. Well, GDP, where does it come from? It's production on one side and it's consumption on the other. To totally maximize GDP, in theory, everyone should be producing and consuming all the time, from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed. But then when are they going to reproduce the species, you see? And we are actually coming up to that barrier at the moment. This is literally what we're seeing with my generation and the younger generations, that they're not reproducing in sufficient numbers because they're deciding to produce and consume too much, or produce and consume taking too much time out of their lives and not willing to take time out of their production and consumption cycle to raise families, to reproduce, and so on. And then we can come back down to the more social problems that are being developed by some of these developments. I mean, we can talk about the impact that in the UK at the moment, universal credit, which is the welfare system here, is absolutely spiraling, and it's spiraling for a number of reasons. But just to give one of them, it seems to be mental health crises are being increasingly, that's the rationale for taking welfare payments. Well, we know that a lot of those things go back to family breakdown. We have mass psychological, sociological studies on them and so on.